I've been waiting 4 years for this. It's really difficult launching a business. It's even more difficult to launch a business into an already crowded space and succeed. But that's what WeCreat did in less than the span of a year. 8 months ago, they released their WeCreat Vision 20-watt version, an all-in-one Class 1 laser that has auto adjusting and leveling, and also with a built-in rotary as well. One of the first in the class that I've seen. But then 8 months later, they launched their second product. They launched a 40-watt version of their WeCreat Vision. So everything that was successful and worked really well in the first machine has now been rolled over into the second machine with better functionality and power. And this is where I think the machine really shines. Now, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I've been waiting 4 years for this. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I've been waiting 4 years for the technology of diode lasers to be up to par with and comparable to their CO2 counterparts. And as of right now, I think diode lasers are actually better, with one small exception, and I'll address that a little bit later. I've been waiting 4 years for the power, speed, and reliability of diode lasers to catch up with their CO2 counterparts. And I think that we're here, especially with some of the new Class 1 lasers that have been released. Specifically, the WeCreat Vision 40-watt version, which is what this machine is right here. So full disclosure, WeCreat did send this out to me for a review. I also did a review of their 20-watt version, which was roughly about 8 months ago. You could go back and watch that and even see a comparison between that machine and some others. The 40-watt version of this diode now cuts thicker material, faster and cleaner than a lot of CO2 counterparts that I've seen. And it's extremely dependable and easy to use. So while this laser usually represents a good start for the hobby market, it is also viable to start a small business as well. And that's what a lot of people are doing with these machines. In fact, myself and my wife do run a small business where we do small scale production orders. We're talking about maybe 200 to 300 pieces in a single production run at times, which is a decent amount. And we run those with machines like the WeCreat. And we've done large scale jobs with the WeCreat Vision 20, and we'll be gearing up to do that with the 40 watt as well. So let's take a look at the machine. I'll talk about a couple of the differences between the 20 watt and why the 40 watt kind of stands out, and why you might want to consider it for your home shop or small business, especially if you don't already have a machine or you're looking to upgrade to something that is a little bit faster, more powerful, and more dependable. So let's take a look inside. So the 40 watt version is the more powerful version of the Vision. And with that, we have a much larger laser head here, which is needed because of the powers, the 40 watts kind of going through here. With that, we do lose a little bit of work area and space down here, mainly because of the large laser head. Now, cutting isn't that big of a problem because it cuts and it goes just along the path that it's cutting out. But when engraving, we lose a little bit more because as it's moving back and forth, it needs a little bit of extra room for the acceleration and deceleration. So we do lose a little bit more of a work area here. The traditional work area inside the WeCreat is 11.5 by 16.5 inches. And with a larger laser head, it's going to be a little bit more like 11 by 16 for cutting, and just a little bit less than that for engraving. I would have to run some additional tests to find out what that exact size is. But I don't have it here, but I will probably be showing it as soon as I get it. WeCreat has released a conveyor system for these machines that attach and run along the bottom, so you could engrave a lot longer pieces of board, although you're still going to be limited to this width. So there is a little bit of flexibility here to get larger sizes if that is what you need for your business or just your hobbies. Down here, we have the same removable knife trays here, or knife edge trays, and those get removed when you are using the rotary, which I don't have set up here at this moment. As far as differences go, this is the real only noticeable difference in the machine because everything else was already put together really well. And just like the 20 watt version, everything is bundled up really nicely. We have adhesive over all of the connections here to make sure that nothing runs loose. This does move and shake quite a bit as it's going back and forth because of the weight of the laser head. So you want to make sure that it's set on a very, very sturdy surface, and you're pretty much ready to go. There's not a whole lot else to show on the machine because it's similar to the 20 watt. And everything is bundled together so nicely that assembly and putting it together was really not much of a hassle at all. One additional note that I think is important, I think they made some changes to the camera, or at least their software. It seems that the accuracy is better than it was before. I know that a lot of hobbyists depend on the camera for alignment, and I've been really impressed with how it's been working so far. I believe they have also upgraded the lighting on the inside, which helps with the visibility of being able to see things down here below. With the 20 watt version, I would often add an extra light or shine an extra light through the top here so I could better see what was going on down here below when I was placing my work material. So an upgrade to the lighting was needed. Also probably helps for the reliability of the camera. And one of the other big noticeable changes is just the color. And so going with the white, they chose to go with this really cool space age gray looking color. And it makes it stand out really well. A lot of people may not even realize that it's here, but we have a slide out tray for all the debris that drops down. In fact, you can see all the debris that's already dropped down from a lot of my tests. So I can take that out, empty it, and then just push it back in. Just like that. And on the back of the machine, of course, we have all of our standard ports. We have our air port, power, exhaust, USB, and Wi-Fi. So the machine is Wi-Fi capable. I know that there's a lot of people that kind of depend on that functionality. And I will say personally that I never use wireless. I've had too many issues with signals dropping, which is not the fault of the machine at all. Wi-Fi signals fluctuate, and when you're dealing with something like this that needs constant information, it's not always the best route to go if you can do without it. So I'm always hardwired to the machine with a computer, and things always tend to work beautifully that way. In the case itself, it goes together within about 15 minutes. There's no real extra assembly required. When you first power up the machine though, you need to make sure that you give it enough clearance to actually raise up, because this does need that vertical clearance in order to operate efficiently. And also check your area to make sure you have enough vertical height for the raising and lowering of the machine, but also for opening the lid. So that is a quick tour of the machine. So let's take a look at what it can do. At this point, I've had the machine nearly a month, and I've had a good chance to put it through its paces and run several tests. In this video, I'm looking primarily at the cutting and engraving capability. I'll take a look at the rotary in a separate video. But something I did with this machine that I almost never do, and that is cut out thicker material than 3mm. 3mm tends to be the standard for most typical hobby lasers, but I had a need to cut out something thicker, so I thought I'd give it a try. Now, this is 1/2 inch rough plywood. Now, rough wood typically does not cut as nicely because of the variations on the surface, and because sometimes there's gaps in the middle in the different layers of the plywood. But this 1/2 inch piece, the WeCreat cut without any issue. There is some charring here on the edges, but that's largely due to the fact that I was probably running the laser too slow, and it could have ran a lot faster. And I'm extremely impressed. Speaking of cutting, I've used quite a few different machines at this point, and when you're cutting, burning and charring and the smoke residue on the edges is typically a problem because you want a clean looking piece. Doing a test cutting out a simple box, these are some of the cleanest cuts I've ever seen. I did have air assist on, which you do need air assist with this, and I did have an external fume extractor running, which I'll talk about in a moment, but it cut out clean, it cut out fast, and it's a perfect part. I don't have to do any extra cleanup. I don't have to do any sanding because of overburn. It cuts down on my work so much that this is going to be my primary machine for doing work like this. On the engraving side of things, because of the more powerful laser head, we're able to do more dimensional engraving without overburning and charring the piece. This right here was specifically run at a higher power so that it engraves at a deeper depth into the wood and gives it a very, very cool effect. A lot of times when you engrave on wood, if you're looking for just a representation of the image, you're using a bunch of laser dots just like an inkjet printer would. At least it has that effect and has that look. But when you run things at a higher power and you're able to engrave into the actual material, it gives this dimensional effect, something that you can't do with anything other than a laser. So I have a couple of those tests that I ran. I have this eye that I did, Viking. Of course, I'm a sucker for tigers. It gives almost this three-dimensional effect. This was probably run a little bit too light, but it's also an MDF, which also gives a different kind of look. And good old George Washington. So now part of this is depending on the preparation of the image. Make sure you're using a good quality image. All of your setup is correct. You also need to make sure that the speed and power of the machine is set to their optimal settings for the effect that you're trying to get. But this is a phenomenal machine. So let's talk really quickly about some things that I think you need to be aware of and some things that might need some slight improvement. They're not deal killers whatsoever. There's things you should know about ahead of time, and there are things that are easily rectified. So one I kind of referenced before is that this is like working in a big tub. You have a big enclosed system here that has a very thin access for a lid, so you have to kind of work inside. So if you have it on a higher surface, it's going to be a little bit awkward, but the quick solution is put on a lower surface. It'll be a lot easier to work within. And the real awkwardness only really comes from having to attach and detach the rotary when you want to use it, just because you're working inside an enclosed space. Otherwise, you're simply just setting material in and taking it out, and that's really not that big of an issue. Next item I'll mention is smoke. This is certified as a class 1 laser when it is closed, which it should always be closed when it's in operation. But because of the up and down nature of the autofocus here, there is a small little gap along here that is not airtight. Now there are brushes in there. Those brushes are to help brush away dust as it moves up and down and keep everything working in a good working order for that mechanism. And it also does block some of the laser light from bouncing out and bouncing outside the machine, which it shouldn't be doing at all anyways. But when you're cutting, there is smell and smoke that can come out of those areas, which is why I highly recommend using an external exhaust fan in addition to the one that's built into the machine. And they're fairly inexpensive. I'll have them linked below. And I think it's kind of a good help anyways to increase that airflow. Once I added that, I didn't smell anything in my garage at that point. But without using it, that smell was starting to get pretty strong, especially when you're cutting through thicker material. And the smoke kind of lingers around just a little bit more. But that smell was a lot stronger when I was cutting through thicker material because there's more debris being cut through, and it kind of lingered around just a little bit more. But that external exhaust fan, which is, like I said, it's fairly inexpensive, was well worth it. In fact, I would add that exhaust fan for all of my machines anyways. It doesn't really matter. It's not just that WeCreat, it's a benefit for all of them. But those are really the only two issues or points that I feel that I have to point out. Otherwise, it is a great machine, and I highly recommend it. Like I said, if you are in the market for a laser, or if you're looking to upgrade from a lower power laser to a bigger one, this is one that deserves your time. Look at it. Their bundles are great. The pricing is extremely competitive, and the community is really helpful and growing. One last comment I'll talk about, because I forgot to mention it before, is the software. So WeCreat does have their own custom software to go with the WeCreat. WeCreat does now support lightburn, although I think there's a couple additional adjustments that need to be made. Make sure to check their material and their info on what those adjustments are. And that's going to have to do with interfacing with the WeCreat camera and the autofocus of the raising and lowering of the machine. Although I think there is precedent for that in lightburn, I think it might have to be set up separately, or maybe WeCreat already has scripts for you to use. There's one more potential benefit for all of my lightburn fans out there, and I am definitely a lightburn fan. But WeCreat software called MakeIt is always improving. It's always getting better, just like most software. They come out with new releases and they fix bugs. But with their software, I don't think there was any functionality that I was missing. I think everything that I needed was already right there, and it's extremely easy to use. One point I will make about the software with this machine is that because this is still new, they are still building out some of the material settings. They still do have their system where they show you a preview of speeds and powers for certain materials, and you can still use that and it's extremely convenient, but they're still building out their material settings for this specific machine. So if you happen to get this within the next week or two and it looks like they're missing some stuff, that's what it is. Everything else works fine, but you can also build your own custom settings, which we kind of should be doing anyways, and you're good to go. So let's wrap up. If you made it this far in the video, I really want to thank you for your time. It means a lot that you've watched this far. If you like laser related content and other DIY and geek related stuff, go ahead and check out our back catalog. We have a lot of videos there for you to check out and enjoy. If you want to help support the channel and are willing to make a small financial contribution to do so, then go ahead and check out our Patreon at patreon.com/GeekBuilders. Be part of that awesome group that is up there. And I have files available for members. I have some tools and other stuff available for free members and non-members as well. Check it out, see if you like it. I'm in the midst of prepping several different files right now. I'm a little bit behind, but there's a lot of stuff that's going to be moving up there. Free designs, free cut patterns, engravings, tips. There's a lot of stuff coming. It's been busy this summer, but I have a lot of stuff ready to go. As I stated earlier in the video, WeCreat did send this out to me for review, but this has been on my radar anyways. I've been looking for a 40-watt diode laser for quite a while now because my CO2 laser is just done for. This is my daily driver. This is what I'm going to be doing a lot of my small business stuff from now on, and maybe you'll consider doing it too. So if you'd like to pick up one of these machines for yourself, check out the info in the description. We have some codes there for you, some info. And WeCreat is in the midst of doing a bunch of different summer sales with all different packages. I would suggest taking a look at the base package itself, which is the machine that includes the rotary, and then take a look at what potential add-ons you might want, such as their air purifier, so you could use it indoors if you only have an indoor space available, and also the conveyor system that allows you to do long boards and big signs if that's what you also need for your hobby and or small business. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Take care. Don't forget to design, make, and play, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.